Hey everybody, KMO here. And on the weekend of the 25th of March, 2017, I drove to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to attend an event. It was an on-stage discussion featuring several people that I had interviewed many times over the years for the C-Realm podcast. The event was put on by the Center for Progressive Urban Politics. The organizer and MC was Kevin Lynn, and the gentlemen on stage were James Howard Kunstler, Dmitry Orlov, John Michael Greer, Chris Martenson, and Frank Morris. And just before they went on stage, I was sitting with them in a conference room at Triode Studios in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I asked them the following question from Eric Boyd, someone who has also been a guest on the C-Realm podcast and somebody who submitted his question via the Friends of the C-Realm group on Facebook. Here's the question from Eric.
So here's the evil question.
Yes. Oh, it will draw laughter, I'm sure. KMO, can you ask JMG and the panel about solar-powered electric cars? With the Solar City acquisition by Tesla, it's pretty clear that that's the long-term vision of the techno-progressives. And given the exponential growth in that market, I don't think it's going to be long before we start seeing them make pretty major impact on the market. About 1% last year, but ramping exponentially. I think it's entirely possible that solar-powered electric cars will cut into fuel oil demand fast enough that we can ride Hubbert's Peak or Hubbert's Curve down without substantial disruption in the happy motoring culture. I think that's for you, Jim. And it also works out perfectly. All those sprawling suburbs are perfect for large solar rooftops. The price of both electric cars, equals mostly batteries, and solar panels have both been dropping so fast it's been stunning. They are pretty affordable already, especially compared to, for example, the rapidly rising cost of housing. Transportation is essentially becoming cheap compared to housing, and as much as I hate this, I'm a walkable, community-loving person. That clearly implies that happy motoring will rise as a trend, not fall, especially once the actual driving is autonomous, so that people can reclaim all of their time, too.
This is a question?
This is a question.
Asked in the form of a statement.
Asked in the form of a lecture.
Would love to hear, well, he's not asking a simple question. Would love to hear some thoughts from the panel on this, since I think it's mostly cars and suburbs that people think are unsustainable. And my views on that have pivoted so much with all the recent changes. Read evidence. And then he's posted a link to the rapidly improving energy return on investment from solar.
Well,
Who wants to take that?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
All right. Cars really don't have anything to do with technology per se. They have a lot to do with petroleum chemistry. If you take a barrel of crude oil and you crack it, about 50% of it ends up as gasoline, and a small fraction, maybe 10%, something like that, ends up as asphalt. So you have to figure out how to sell the gasoline and the asphalt, and if you don't manage to do that, then the really valuable parts of the oil barrel, which is jet fuel, kerosene, diesel,
All the other, everything.
the useful
everything
stuff.
from kerosene to bunker
Suddenly
fuel,
the price goes up, and the entire economic model stops making any sort of sense at all. So cars are not really about transportation. They're about forcing people to buy gasoline. Electric cars cut into that, and if electric cars become popular enough, they will destroy enough of the petroleum infrastructure that runs on diesel and jet fuel that part of the economy will fail. And then the electric cars will not be delivered because it requires diesel. And roads won't get paved because that requires road tar. And then what you'll have is solar cars driving on dirt roads. Now, is that a viable future? I don't think so. Those things are not really all-terrain. I'm yet to see an all-terrain vehicle that is solar.
So what fraction of the barrel of oil goes to make regular gasoline?
About 50%.
50%.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll interject something here if you don't mind.
Well, that was addressed to you.
Okay, first of all, it's all very well and good to talk about how suburbs are great locations for rooftop solar, and that makes a lot of sense if you live in Arizona. It does not make that much sense if you live where most of the American people live. That is to say, within 100 miles of the Atlantic Ocean, where it's generally fairly cloudy much of the time. Okay? The energy return on energy investment of solar energy looks really good as long as you externalize almost all the costs. And that's usually the way it's done these days. With every kind of energy resource. You pretend that all of the manufacturing processes, all of the raw materials, everything that has to go into the system doesn't count, and that it looks great. Furthermore, I'd point out that anything that Elon Musk is into is a subsidy dumpster. He has realized quite cleverly, and the man's very smart, he's realized the one guaranteed source of lots of money in today's economy is to leech off government subsidies. He's really good at that. All of his industries are based on sucking at the tit of subsidies. And so the fact that he's all over this does not mean that it's economically viable. It means that it's a great way to soak up subsidies. So the thing is, we've been hearing this same crap for how many decades now? That solar-powered cars or what have you are about to break through and make the happy motoring paradise continue indefinitely. Every weary year, the same tripe gets trotted forth by the same technocornucopians who simply don't want to deal with the fact that that dreadful word limits actually applies to them. So, people will continue to believe that. They love their dreams of progress. Progress is their god, and they're welcome to their fantasies.
And fantasies often don't come with numbers. So here's some numbers. Here's my
Okay.
favorite number.
Let's hear from the number man.
I'm the number guy.
You the number guy. Hit it.
So if Elon Musk manages to sell 500,000 cars a year, which is up from about 80,000 this year, that number of electric cars, as they're currently configured, will consume 100% of the world's mined source of lithium. So I'm going to imagine China has something to say about that, and Japan is going to, and Germany and other countries will say, we're not going to. But even if he did 500,000 cars, growing exponentially, don't forget that. Woo! 500,000 at a current run rate of about 17.5 million cars sold is about 3%. So for the United States to supplant just 3% of the current sales volume will require 100% of current lithium.
And that's just one bottleneck.
That's just one. I got more, right?
Yeah. You're good.
So it just doesn't. So fantasies, as you're talking about, they don't comport with reality. They don't stack up to the numbers. And I wish these people would just get a crayon and a napkin out and just go run through the basic numbers, because they just don't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work out.
And the assumption also about the inevitability of solar in the suburbs is also doesn't account for not only just the location, but the counter attack from the utilities, attempting to put surcharges on for infrastructure kinds of costs. And the question, there was an excellent article in the MIT Technical magazine last year, is the whether about the viability, they're going to be permitted on rooftops because the efficiency combined that comes from solar farms is probably so much more efficient than individual units until they develop battery alternatives. So we'll see.
The part that I find amusing is the idea that we would want to promote the continuation of suburban living, which in itself is a living arrangement with no future. Another feature of this idea is that the whole motoring model is already failing on the financial basis. Because the middle class is shrinking and getting clobbered financially, there are fewer and fewer people who are creditworthy enough to qualify for auto loans, and Americans are used to buying cars on installment loans. That's how we buy cars. What's more, we're entering a period of capital scarcity in which there's going to be less money to loan out, and that will be less money to loan out to fewer qualified borrowers. So, the fuel question of how you run a car is one issue, but the question of how you run the whole model of how Americans are induced to participating in this program and buying the cars is another point of failure. So I would put the whole idea really in the wishful thinking folder. And I don't, one of the problems with these issues is that there are a lot of smart people out there who think about them, but I think that they really don't think very, very deeply into the problem to see what happens when you take it down a couple of levels and see what happens. And this particular one fails at a lot of levels.
But
Kevin?
I think that strapping some solar panels to the roof of a car is a really good idea. It makes it look really cool. Doesn't really matter whether they do anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't realize it, but the efficiency of a solar panel drops precipitously in the presence of dust. And so if you're on a road with a whole bunch of tractor trailers that are spewing diesel exhaust, which is basically greasy dust, the efficiency of your solar panels will go down to zero pretty quickly, and then you have to go over them carefully with soap and water. Now, how many people are going to do that? I doubt it. So we're going to have these things with dusty solar panels on the roof. That's fine.
Yeah, we just had an issue today where we drove 300 miles down from the far north through a lot of rain and slush, and there was salt all over the road. And for the last 2 days, I've been trying to clean the salt residue off of the glass windows, and I can't even do that with Windex because apparently it's not very good at dissolving salt. So, you know.
Try that on a solar panel.
Yeah, and again, people jump to the conclusion that because there is X amount of flat surface area, there will be as much sun as we want, as often as we want it, and battery technology. Well, of course that will happen. That's one of the huge problems, is the battery issue. But the fixation on science fiction fantasies of progress. The idea that if you can imagine something, we can build it. If anybody who wants to claim that is welcome to do so, as long as they present me with a working perpetual motion machine first. Okay?
Well, our standards, the standards of the people in this room are kind of outlandish. We actually want things to work. Now, what most people want is to feel better.
Yeah.
So, to give you a good example, there's a little wind generator whirligig on the roof of that horrible city hall in Boston that Mayor Menino put up there, and it's green, and it produces green energy. Enough green energy to power a little desk fan on Mayor Menino's desk. And that made him feel better. See, it works. Green energy works.
When people talk about green energy, I wonder, can you look at the wires and watch it glow green or something like that?
Well, speaking for myself, I came here today by bicycle, and I rarely put miles on. The only car I have is the utility van that I'll use for filmmaking. And I've just arranged my life to where I don't need the automobile. And I do that here in Lancaster, but I also did it in Los Angeles because it was just so, the commuting by car became so uninteresting that I just needed to get out of it.
But you've actually spoken, you've spoken the heresy, the blasphemy, the utter apostasy against the American dream. You changed your lifestyle, okay? Nobody wants to change their lifestyle.
It's non-negotiable.
The universe has to change so that we don't have to give up our extravagant habits.
Well, let's remember that we have a lot of sunk costs in all of the infrastructure and furnishings and accessories.
And jobs.
Yeah.
Economic
And
expectations.
so, you can understand that. One thing that well-intentioned people like this guy who asked the question, one thing that they don't tend to think of is, how about living in walkable cities, or walkable neighborhoods?
Which the questioner does, and he favors them.
Well,
He even mentioned that in the
but
question.
he didn't present that in his question. And,
No,
and
he
I think
mentioned-
that's and that's not even, I wouldn't even put that in the folder of, things we must do if we're going to be serious. That's where we're going, whether we like it or not. We're not going to be motoring the way we have been, decades from now, maybe even 5 years from now, and that's the remedy for it. But the fact that it's so far out of the arena and off the table is always shocking to me.
I've noticed it very consistently.
Yeah, we gotta go.
We gotta go. Let me just wind this up then. It's very consistent. Very consistent. A lot of people will make a little bit of, give a little lip service to walkable cities, and then go right back and say, "But of course, we're actually going to go on with this paradise of happy motoring." It's like all the people who, unlike yourself, who insist that bicycle commuting is the wave of the future, but would never think of doing it themselves. So you always have to pay attention to the difference between the lip service, the mouth music, and what people are actually willing to do. So,
Thank you all.
Great, thanks, Caleb.
now that we've annoyed the stuffing out of your
Good tease.
So what did you think of the answers from the panelists? Do you think they were too dour, too pessimistic? Or do you think that people who think that we are going to transition to electric vehicles and just continue with happy motoring unabated are delusional? Let me know down in the comments below, or you can send me email or find me on Twitter, or, best of all probably, join us over at the Friends of the Sea Realm group on Facebook. All right, thank you much. I will talk to you again soon.